refuse to give them any type of power, because in reality, I am training myself to be desensitized to the triggers that they put in front of me. Has it stopped? Nah, not at all, actually. Just the other day, I was leaving out of a restaurant, to pick up an order, and I placed the order in the back seat of my car. And as I'm doing that, I see a dark sedan. I see a sedan, Hyundai, and they had their lights on, but they were acting as if I was in their parking spot, and they kept blowing their horn. They had the light on, and then I hear the driver yelling and stuff, and then I know I heard him say, he called me out of my name. I don't know this person. I don't know who the hell they are. That is weird, like, because the person did all that just to not park anywhere. Now, mind you, there was parking spots all around. Like, there was, right behind us, there was like a whole row of parking spots. So this person, if he really wanted to park, he could have just parked right behind us anywhere. They had like maybe 10 or plus more parking spots that he could have went, but for some reason he was acting as if we were parked in a specific spot designated for him. Come to find out that he never parked anywhere near the establishment. He just drove away. So basically he had no purpose of being there other than to bother us. And it was very obvious, very, very plain and obvious. So yes, that was a very strange encounter. So that right there, that is no shadow of a doubt. That is a harasser. That is a gang stalker. Take note of the car and the plate. At least I try to remember like the first 3 letters or numbers, whatever. The first 3, and then just kind of, if they have any, sometimes just to see like, okay, that's them, It's interesting because I noticed the pattern here is that the moment that I started to shift my mind to other things, the moment that I stopped giving the gang stalking stuff my energy, they always come back around, with that. It's almost like they want to pull you back into that thought process. Like here's the thing, they want to make us obsessed with them just as much as they're obsessed with us. Yes, because they have an unhealthy obsession. I noticed that recently I started doing at least trying to do some research, and then I find out that all of a sudden the information that was once publicly available all of a sudden is not, so there's no way to really verify this shit other than the fact that, some people, have to live with, a lot of constant problems with their nervous system, migraines, chronic migraines being one of them, which I've had that since I was 8. I've had that, and they don't tell you where it comes from. I mean, it comes from something. Like, it's not just, oh, you just have this. But see, in the divided states, people always say, oh, you have this, you have that, certain illnesses. And you're like, there's something in the air. There's a certain frequency in the air. There's something going on here that obviously they're not going to make it publicly known anymore. It used to be a time where I know somebody, that I used to be Facebook friends with. And this person was in the military, and they have a lot of information about a lot of stuff, including astral projecting and all types of stuff that you might think like, oh, that's crazy talk. Well, in the military, yeah, they've been doing research. They've been doing a lot of experimentations and stuff like that, and really trying to understand the human mind and how to control it, basically, because essentially they want to learn how to control your mind. Now, all of this information is, it can be useful when you are ready for it, but the problem is that this type of stuff is becoming hard to find it now. Because the other day I remember, like, about last year I was able to find some information, and then all of a sudden it's like the information is gone, like it's not there. So now it's easy to just put it to the side, and a lot of times it may seem like I did that because I haven't been talking about it, And I was on a roll at one point, but it's like I kind of had to take a break from that, because another thing too is that when you stumble across a certain type of like situation that is nearly impossible to prove, I mean, it's like when you record it, I personally think that that's what they want us to do. Like, I think they want us to do that so that we look crazy. The problem is that when it comes to gang stalking, it's not always obvious. Like, these people, they have, the mind is a very intricate thing. It's very easy to condition it to associate, certain beings with certain emotions to bring out a certain reaction. And of course, the biggest reaction that they want out of us is for us to go crazy, for us to react in a negative way so we can be painted exactly as they say. The thing about gang stalkers is that they depend on our energy. Like, they want to live in our minds rent free. They want us to think about them 24/7. So when you carry a lot of light, you're going to irritate people. That's just what it is. And gang stalkers, they're going to try to mess with you. But when you get to a certain point where you just don't give a fuck no more, like you pretty much have to not give a fuck no more. And you have to become like, man, you kind of gotta be a little bit, it actually kind of hardens you in a way, but you don't want to let it, like, you don't want it to dim your light, but you kind of harden over time and you become more like, how do we say, I mean, I was always a loner, so that's nothing new. You know what I mean? Like, that's nothing new to me, but they kind of mess up they try to mess you up, your perception of reality, which we're not going to let that happen. Whenever I encounter someone that gives off the same energy as a former narcissistic friend, I stay away from them. You see, these people will tell on themselves, I think about what kind of person would show off embarrassing videos of their own best friend. That person doesn't even look like they know that they're being recorded. Right? And that's supposed to be her best friend. So if that's how she treats her best friend, what makes you think that she could be trusted? These are the characteristics of not only a narcissist, but someone that does not respect your privacy, which basically a gang stalker. That's gang stalking behavior, is that kind of thing. It's just a mess. And when you see that, right, when you see that kind of behavior happening in the workplace, be very aware, especially because, man, these people, like, they don't respect your privacy. They want to record you because they want to catch you slipping so they can just put it on their whatever social media or whatever it is that whoever weird behavior, it goes back to that. That's why I had to leave that job, because I woke up in the morning and something told me that, I was going to get in a fight with someone. Someone was going to piss me off. And it's going to be that particular person that likes to record every damn thing, So these gang stalkers do everything to get your energy. They need you to be in constant hypervigilance, constant adrenaline rushing through the body. And eventually you get to a point where, I mean, what it does for me, it pushes me to be on point and to really maintain that strong presence everywhere I go. Eventually, like I said, they don't like looking stupid, right? Because even in the other scenario I mentioned about that person that was yelling from his car, acting like we took his parking spot, when he just took off. He took off the moment that he realized that I just completely ignored this person, But see, gang stalkers, they want to put you in a position where they can control your emotions, your reactions, so that it's like they want to make you want to beat their ass, basically. They want to make you want to become aggressive and violent. That way, it becomes evident to them and to whoever they want to prove this to that that we're the crazy one. And that's the biggest thing. You have to think, like, what is their goal? Well, for me and for a lot of people out there, it's always that they want to prove that we're crazy to someone, so that it can, really place that, they want to place that stigma on us so bad. So bad. And it only works when we give it our energy. Now, I understand that these individuals, they follow you everywhere, and if I was to really go in detail about a lot of other things, I would be getting personal on here. But all I have to say is that some of us have to be nomadic. Some of us have to move around a lot. Me personally, I find that the longest I've settled in a location was 3 years. And that was when I lived in an apartment where one of the maintenance people was a strange person. And needless to say that we decided to put a camera in the living room. And turns out that, he was coming in and out of the place. We had no work order. So it's like, what are you doing coming in and out? You know what I mean? It's just weird. Like, what did he do differently? See, stuff like that, you have to think, And eventually we end up leaving that place. But I realized that, and there was a lot of other things, from the neighbors saying strange things. You notice that when you leave out the apartment, you have neighbors saying stuff to you, right? It's almost like you can tell when you've been talked about, and that it's not true, right? So that's what was happening. And then a lot of times it could happen. They do this to, they orchestrate this to make you feel some type of way, to make you feel small. But also, if you come as a couple, they do that to destroy your relationship, destroy your marriage, or whatever you have going on. They want to do that, because, they're miserable. Gang stalkers are miserable. You think gang stalkers get lucky? Yeah, that's funny. But seriously, I find that ever since then, we had to be nomadic, because even after we left those apartments, ended up moving somewhere else. And we couldn't even stay there for a year, because that was the location where I talked about that area, that low vibrational town where we, our old car was broken into. And I know exactly who did it. But it seems like no matter where you go, no matter what town you go to, it's like, they always find you. They always see you. Like, and I think it feels like persecution, right? But what I come to realize is that I think that when your energy becomes known in a certain area, there's people that eventually, it's like they get a whiff of your energy. They can smell you. And then now all of a sudden they gather, because there's so many people that are pretty much operating in the same type of way. They don't really think for themselves. They're very easily influenced by dark forces, or any force for that matter. It just so happens that it's always a dark force. It's rarely ever divine, right? But because of that, because there's so many of them that don't think for themselves, they're very susceptible to deception. So when they come in contact with you, they're going to automatically be against you, because they don't think for themselves. And it's very easy. I'm telling you, it's so easy to manipulate the masses. That's the reason why there's so much of this gang stalking stuff happening. And honestly, the best way to maneuver, the best way to handle this kind of thing is it's like, in a way, it kind of like sharpens your perception of self. That's what it's done for me. Like, it sharpens your perception of self, and you have no choice but you become the one who shifts the energy in the whole space. Now that's going to draw a lot of attention because they're going to see this, who is this person, right? And that's another reason why that happens. But when you understand who you are, that's key, right? It's key. Like, oh, of course this person's going to get pissed off, right? Of course they're going to hate seeing your presence glowing, right? Especially when they've done all this stuff. At this point, at this point where I'm at now, I laugh at these fools because it's like they've done these things. They say they do goofy shit. They think that they can call me the B word over a parking spot, even though they never planned on even going into this establishment in the first place. Like, who does that? Like, think about that. Like, these people have no fucking life. They have no life whatsoever. And like I said, as long as you can put yourself in a position where you can be self-employed or get a driver job or do some type of logistics or what else? What else is working from home, that kind of thing. Remote jobs is like, if you can do that, that is a must, because I personally, I cannot be around a lot of people because majority of those people, they are going to some, you already know what happens. We don't have to even go there, but it just never fails. Some people look at it as paranoia, but in reality, people, a lot of times, man, they're jealous because of, if you're the kind of person that is highly skilled and you outshine people, and you live in a society that they live their life based on the 48 laws of power, and the one thing you can't do is you cannot outshine the master. Well, some of us can't help it. We just shine that bright, So if I can't outshine, if I can't shine, I don't want to be around. I don't want to be in a place where I can't shine. Don't outshine the master. Well, maybe the master's not really a master. How about that? It's like we make people work hard, even harder. And gang stalkers don't like that, because gang stalkers, they're narcissistic, they're very narcissistic. So they like to feel like they're always in control. They want to feel like they're above you, they're superior to you. And when you're that kind of person that you've done a lot of work on yourself, I mean, they're going to hate us. That's another reason why they're watching. They want to sabotage. But see, look, over time, I developed like, I don't fear these fools. You're not going to get anxiety out of me. You're not going to do nothing to me. And that's the reason why, like I said, I don't talk about it as much, because I don't want to give them power. And when I do talk about something like this, usually the thumbnail has a picture of a flame, right? Because a lot of times these gang stalkers, I would not be surprised if they're the same that the people that's trying to place curses on you, trying to place, like I said, is a form of sabotaging your life and your destiny, right? More than likely, those are your gang stalkers. They go and see people to ruin you spiritually. And that's one of the reasons why some of us, might be in some of the predicaments that we're in too, trying to slow us down. I mean, they can't destroy us, they can't take us, they can't do nothing, man. I mean, they can try to slow us down. That's really the most they can do. And it can be frustrating, trust me. But I refuse to give them power, and that's why every now and then, like I said, man, I can feel when there's spiritual attacks coming my way. Actually, just last night I had some spiritual attacks yet again, and it's been more intense lately. I wonder why. Like, it's a lot, so sometimes we have to take a break. And that's another thing too. And talking about gang stalking, that's one of those things that I just can't talk about it too often, because I feel like I'm feeding the beast. I feel like I'm feeding it. But I also understand that, there's ways, I'm trying to find ways to still talk about it without empowering them. You know what I mean? I want to be able to talk about it in a way that it brings the power back to me. And that's another thing I keep in mind. So, I've said enough here. I appreciate all of you for listening. Take care, and until next time.